Welcome back to the Life and Times podcast. I'm your host, Lloyd Phillips, and normally, I guess Leighton would be here, Leighton Rowan. He's not here today. Today's a funky day for a reason. There's some things I do. As we all know, this is probably not my real professional job, and that has me doing some kind of funky schedule. So, I got to leave super early. Just time didn't add up, so, we'll tell Leighton we miss him later. Every week I forget to say this, so if you hit us up at life and times speakpipe.com, you know what? Let's just let Leighton edit that part in here later, however he needs to do it. But anyway, so how's everybody doing? I hope you had a pretty good week this week. My week was okay. There's a couple of things that I found. I saw a celebrity. So I was in the New York airport on Monday or Tuesday. So anyway, so I'm in there and I sit down. I get off the plane. I walk straight to this Mexican food restaurant, and I sat on the end. I didn't want to go squeeze in between people, so I sat on the very end. And there was a lady that had her back to me, sitting next to this guy. They're having a conversation, so I'm sitting there, and while sitting, I have my headphones on. But I don't have the noise canceling. I don't have it turned on. So I can actually hear everything. Even though I have headphones on, I can hear every word that's being said, like all of it. So I hear the lady speak, and then I look at the back of her head, and she looked like she used 6 cans of Aquanet on her hair, trying to bouffant it up, as high as she could get it. So when somebody stopped, remember, her back's still to me, so I don't know who it is until I heard her speak, and he said, "My mom loves your show." It's this guy, rough age, 60-year-old guy, walks up to her and he says, "My mom loves your show." And she starts speaking, and that's when I heard and realized, because of what the guy said, and I heard her voice and I can see her hair. Once again, I have not laid eyes on her face, but I am looking at the back of the Long Island medium, Teresa Caputo. I don't know. I didn't look it up for the show. I don't know if she has this show on TLC. I think it's like TLC. Man, all those shows I don't watch. And it's fine if you do. My mom watches these shows, all of them. If it's on TLC or Bravo or, all the, those channels, I don't watch those. Those are not entertaining to me. Those are the waste your life channels. That's what I feel like. Now, no offense to my mom. She's retired. She can do whatever you want, what she wants. But if you are in your 20s and 30s, in 40s, and you're watching any of those channels at nighttime, you got to get a better hobby. Like, those are the biggest trash shows I've ever seen. No offense. I'm not now. Hold up. Listen. So it makes it sound like I'm mouthing Teresa Caputo. I'm not mouthing her. I'm just saying those channels are just worthless. So Leighton always says, you're burned down a sponsor. Well, I assure you, none of those channels are ever going to sponsor me. Those terrible channels. It's just still reality TV. It's just trash. The whole thing, every show on every one of those channels is all trash. Anyway, let me get back to it. Sorry, because I got a little carried away, and I apologize if you love those channels. I don't. I'm just saying, like, get better hobbies or something. Whatever. Hear her speak. I know that's who that is, and now the guy walks away. So we're just sitting there. She's still talking to the guy she was talking to. I think he was her manager or something, because they were talking about they're flying to Texas and they were going to land and go to hop on a smaller plane to hit all these airports that weren't that far apart. And I thought in my head, I don't like those shows, as you just heard me say. I want to speak to her just to say that I did, but I don't know how I'm going to play it. So she finally she turns in her seat so I can see the side of her face. She has this drink. Now, on Facebook a long time ago, I don't know, I was probably looking up health shakes or something, and we all know, from if you listen weekly, it's not like I'm a ball of fitness, right? But there was these health shakes, and I thought to myself, I'm like, those look awesome. If those really taste like water and it has all these health properties in the shake, I think it was called Mud or something. It's not exactly what she had, but what was in that cup looked disgusting. It was green and it looked similar to the product I'm referring to. So this is how I started the conversation, because I actually want to know about that because it was a thing that I had looked at previous. That was my in. So I say, hey, ma'am, is that mud drink? And she said, yes. I don't know if it's the exact same one because it was like AG1 or something like that. And I was like, so is that it? And she said, oh, yeah. I was like, is it good? She's like, oh, I love it. It gives me so much energy. Now, which I wasn't going to have a health drink conversation with her because I don't drink health drinks. I'm just simply saying that I looked into it. It's not like I was like trying to, buy it. Otherwise I would have. So now here's the decision has been made. I know in my head, based on what I just told you, I don't watch those shows. I've never watched her show. She talks to spirits and ghosts and that kind of stuff. And if you're into that, cool. I'm not into that even almost. And I always say like I don't talk about any like hot button topics on this thing, but I'm just going to tell. Like I go to church, and I believe in God. Now I think she does also. I'm assuming because every person she spoke to, her last words to every single person that took a picture with her was God bless. So maybe she does, but it's probably not the same way that I believe because I don't want to talk about this on the podcast. I'm just simply saying I don't watch your show. I'm not doing seances. I'm not doing anything. I've talked about Ouija boards on this show before. Not in any depth. But what I did say was I'm not playing with Ouija boards. Anything that I think that a ghost is going to grab me, nope, I'm not doing it. So you're not talking to my passed away grandpa and grandma and friends. I don't want any part of that at all. So, but that's not why I didn't bring up her show. The real reason I bring up her show is for what I just said. I hate that show. So what I didn't want to say, which I felt like most people who walked up to her said, I didn't want to say, oh my gosh, Teresa, I love your show. How are you doing? That is my favorite show ever. It's not my favorite show. And I got to be honest, I think a lot of those people that walked up to her, 10 people walked up to her and said, I love your show. It's my favorite show. And I don't believe that's true. I actually don't believe that that's true. I don't think it's their favorite show. I think they see a celebrity and they got to say something to take a picture with her. And so that's what they all say. Now, in our conversation, now this is in and out of people taking pictures, but remember, I never acted like I knew her at all. And so we started talking about just different things. It started off with the drink and then, where you going, Texas? And I was like, okay. And then I said, she said podcast, just however it got brought up. She said it first. I was like, oh, I got a podcast also. So then there was like 2 minutes of podcast talk. And I was just asking her questions about, does she have a team and does she edit and all this? And about every, 40 seconds, somebody would take a picture with her. So she'd take a picture and smile. She was actually very nice. She was very nice to me and she was very nice to every single person who stopped. So I will give her that. Super nice lady. But about the 10th picture, and this is about, 15, 20 minutes into me sitting there. After the 10th picture and before I got up, all I said to her was, well, I guess your podcast is a little more, what I said, your podcast must be bigger than mine. That's what I said. That was the end of my conversation with Teresa Caputo. I didn't even tell her bye when I left. I paid my tab and I got up and I walked off. I just did. And so what's funny is I text my mom, the one who keeps the terrible channels in business. I text her. I'm like, I sent a picture of the back of her head to mom. Like, oh, here's Teresa Caputo, Long Island Median. And it was either her or my wife. They're like, oh my gosh, FaceTime with us. I'm not FaceTiming because I just spent the last 4 minutes acting like I didn't know who she was. And then all of a sudden I would have had to say, hey, what you don't know is I took a secret picture of you at the back of your head and sent it to my mom and wife. And so I was just playing. I know who you are. I wasn't going to say that. I'm not going to say that. I don't care who the lady is. I think her show's, I think it's just, well, should I say that? That's rude. If you guys are out there and, I'm sorry. Her show's not for me. I'll keep it nice. She was very nice to people, by the way, but yeah, Teresa Caputo there. All this time I spent in airports, I don't and I don't want to make it an airport show. If you listen to the show all the time, you always hear me talk about it, but there's just, I've only met or laid eyes on probably 10 famous people the entire time I've ever traveled. And I figured you'd probably see more in New York, LaGuardia, but I didn't. That's it. I saw a guy who had given up on life. And, you know, you shouldn't judge people, like I said, but I am a judger. Wherever that falls with you, I'm sorry. But I was walking to my gate, and there was a guy who had a backpack on, and then he had a duffel bag. The guy, I don't know, the guy was regular height, he was probably 5'10", and he had a duffel bag with an extra long strap, and he had it pulled out as far as it would go. So it was on his shoulder. It was on his shoulder, but he was dragging his bag, and I followed him for probably 200 yards. He dragged his bag for 200 yards, and I thought to myself, you know, if you listen to last week's show, which, by the way, the ratings-wise was real high. It was real high up there ratings-wise. Real special show. Well, I guess these people that were eating behind me last week, based on their conversation, which had to do with only coffee and then switched to cats, I assumed I knew what they looked like. I would assume this guy drinks coffee and loves cats only, because he drug his bag. I don't know how else to word it. It looks like you can hold yourself high, you can roll your shoulders back, you can walk with confidence, or you can lean over and drag your bag 200 yards and look like you gave up on life. That's what I thought he looked like. You know, I felt bad for him. But I also thought, bro, you can't be that lazy. Pick your bag up. Like, you know, I felt weird about it. You know, a little weird. So anyway, well, so today I asked my kids where they want to go. They want to go swimming at my friend's house. I'm like, okay, well, I'll take you over there. And I'm just going to tell you, kids these days they're different. They're just different. Not everybody's strange, but just for overall, back in the day when I was a kid, as you all know, just like probably most of you listened to this show, I don't know, man. I looked at the demographics. There's a lot of 20s. Hey, 20-somethings, let me don't mount too much. But the teens for sure, because my daughter's a teen. Probably you guys too, to be honest, early 20s. Nobody really communicates. When I was a kid, you were forced to speak to people. You had to speak to people. Otherwise, nobody was going to know anything. I guess you could always do that third grade thing where you talk through your friend. You'd be like, hey, go tell her I like her. And then my friend goes and tells whoever that is, hey, he likes you. And then they send a friend over like, oh, my friend likes you too. Like, okay, ask her if she wants to be my girlfriend. And then she says yes. And then you just sit by each other at lunch. But you don't talk because it's weird and you weren't the one that initially asked, right? There's that kind of stuff. And then you grow out of it about 5th and 6th grade. That, you know, then that's when you man up and you're like, you want to be my girlfriend? Or do you want to date? I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember what I used to say. The point is you had to say it. Like you had to say it. These days, you got cell phones and people just talk through text or Instagram, which is where I'm going with this. So I know that I don't think they're trying to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but I know that my daughter talks to my friend's son through Instagram, which is weird because the 20 times we've ever been to their house, I've never seen these two speak to each other. Not off the top of my head. I don't remember them ever actually speaking to each other at all, ever in person. I've never laid out, not that I remember. Now, I know that they've been talking on Instagram. Now texting, right? You're not talking. Just, I don't know. I don't even know. This is bad. And I got a podcast. Oh yeah. You can play video on Instagram. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if they send videos. I don't know if they just chat on Instagram. I don't know what it is. The point is they know each other. And I know they've been speaking because my daughter told me, just because it's my friend's kid. She's like, whatever. So we show up today and he answers the door. And I was just wondering how weird this interaction was going to be because I know that he doesn't always like to talk out loud either. So we open the door. My daughter walks past him She doesn't say anything. He doesn't say anything. She walks straight out back to the pool. He walks to his room and shuts the door. So I walk outside. It's like, did you tell him hi? She's like, no. Which I know. Obviously, I walked in right behind him. And then I went and knocked on his door. I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. I was like, did you say hi or anything? He's like, no. It's not like I wasn't like trying to have an arranged marriage here or anything, but I just think it's strange that they can't communicate. And I've seen it all the time. Like you'll show up, two kids. I know they talk to each other all the time on text or Facebook, and they get in person and they just stand there. This is even like, these are people that not even trying to like each other or date each other, like even friends. You'll see an adult parent that you know, and your kids that you know are friends. You know they hang out. And then the parents walk up and be like, hey, what's up, man? Like, no, not much. What have you been doing? And the kids just stand there and stare at each other. I think it's weird. It just is weird. Why are kids weird these days? I mean, I felt, listen, I turned out just fine. I don't think I was weird. The only thing that was weird, this is what was weird, is that back in the day, you couldn't go hide in a corner or you couldn't. This is early life. Now, it's a step progression here with the phones. You could have done that back in the day. If you're going to talk to your girlfriend back in the day, you were going to do it in the living room in front of everybody. And you weren't going to walk that far because the cord on that phone didn't go that far. So you literally have to sit in front of your mom and dad. These kids that can't even speak to each other in public. You talk about some stray cats back then. I would love to transplant the kids these days that have cell phones. They go hide in a corner or their closet or whatever these weird kids do that turn into furries and all the other stuff that kids are weird about these days. I would like to transplant these kids, go back to having a home phone, and then let them call their friends, guys or girls, boyfriends, girlfriends, just right in front of you all the time. And that way I'm 3 feet away and just stare. See, back then you had to just man up. You had to just man up and speak in front of your mom and dad. You like the girl, you're going to have to talk to her in front of your mom and dad. And there's no two ways about it. I mean, that's it. Like, there's really no private conversation. It's like that, man. It's like not to be all weird. You know, I always act like kids can listen to this show. I'm just simply telling you, but it's like walking into a bathroom with no partitions, which I've told these stories before, but you know, you gotta just man up and get in there. You know, you just gotta step up in there. Because if you're at like a sporting event and there's no partitions in between these toilets, what are you gonna do? Pee your pants? Like, you're gonna have to get in there and pee, son. I don't know what else to tell you. I don't have a boy, but you know, that's what I'd say if I did. And if I relate it to me, it's the thing. Anyway, back to the phones. You're gonna have to talk. You'll have to speak. I mean, and to be real honest, even when it took the cord away, when they started making cordless phones, I mean, now you thought you were uptown when you had a cordless phone also, but you couldn't walk that far away. You had to be somewhere within the receiving range. You know, you could extend your antenna, which is another thing kids don't know about. It's like when you're the first cell phones or the cordless phones, you'd have to put the antenna, go about a foot in the air, you know, and you'd walk around. You maybe could walk outside if the windows were open or something like that, but you couldn't. I just think it'd be a funny thing for kids to have to revert to the way it was in the 80s. That way they have a meltdown. They wouldn't know what to do. There's no streaming services. Like, there's nothing on demand. Best thing you got is HBO, and there's a guide, and there's those feature presentations. I forget, I was speaking to somebody about that this week, where they're like, hey, you remember those HBO feature presentations? I did. But see, back then, thing was up. Listen, this was not even a rant. You know, this is supposed to be a funny show, but like, times are changing. Now, I don't know if the greatest use of family time in the world is to sit around the TV. So I realize what I'm about to say is it's a little borderline being hypocritical, but back in let's say maybe late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, and 90s, the regular like public TV stations would play like blockbuster movies, not Blockbuster Video, but you know, Hollywood hits. You know, they would play actual famous movies that maybe it may have been, I don't remember, 2 to 10 years old. And they would play it every like Friday or Saturday night. It was like a feature presentation. So you literally went and got popcorn and candy, and then you sat in front of the TV. There were commercials back then because it was on regular TV. People used to do that as a family. It was like a thing that you did. Once again, is there better family functions than TV? Absolutely. I'm just simply making a reference what it was like then. So if you're going to watch movies, back then you either went and rented it at a video store. It was either a VHS tape, or previous to that in my life, it was a gigantic. I think if you remove the case, it was probably like a foot. It was like a record size CD. I never opened one up, but they were called Laserdisc. If I'm not crazy, I think they were Laserdisc. Now, once again, I don't research anything, so I'm not going to do it now for the sake of this. But I think I never looked in it, but I'm going to imagine it was like a gigantic CD in the thing. But that would have been before they made CDs and cars. I don't know, man. You look it up. I don't got time. Anyway, that's what you had. That's what you had to watch. So you go to the video store, which everybody knows, but I'm just simply saying that's what you had. Kids would have a literal meltdown these days. Wouldn't know what to do with themselves. I mean, anyway, those were good times. And then HBO came out, and then you could watch the full movie with HBO. And then when I was a kid, so speaking of that, I watched movies with my daughter last night, but I'll say, we'd get to certain parts in the feature presentation. You could basically see it coming if you're an adult, not as a kid. It just might jump up on you, but there would be those scenes where my mom and dad would say, cover your eyes. You better cover your eyes right now. You better not be looking. You better not be looking through your fingers. Cover your eyes. You can't see this part. That's what my mom and dad would say. Well, but I was a young boy, so I was always trying to put like little gaps in my fingers, just to see what was happening on the screen. So that was the thing that you did, or cover your ears. I sometimes had to cover your ears, which is dumb because you could still hear it. But those are things that mom and dad would say. Now, speaking of movies, of when I was a kid to now, just last night, I have a 10 and a 13-year-old. 10 and 13. Just last night, I showed them the first Friday the 13th movie, the very first one. And honestly, when I think of Friday the 13th, I always think of Jason, like actual Jason. Hockey mask, hatchet. Usually it's a hatchet, right? But knife, axe. Oh, no. The axe. Whatever he uses, I think of Jason. That's what I think about. I totally didn't remember. So we watched it, and it was about the mom. I'm not giving it away. Listen, people, this movie's made in 1980. So if anybody's like, you better not give it a spoiler. No spoiler. Give it a spoiler. You better not spoil the movie for me. Spoiler alert. Why can I not speak? Spoiler alert. This movie was made in 1980. So if you haven't seen it by now, that's your fault. It's fine. So they watch it for the first time. Now, if I did watch it as a child, I just didn't remember the movie. It's been so long. I probably did, because I did remember his mom at the end. Only when she came out. The whole movie, I was waiting for Jason the whole time. And then when he didn't, the mom pulled up. I'm like, oh yeah, the mom. She was the bad guy in the first one. So, but the scenes, the acting. I don't think people were dumb in the 80s or 70s. Like, I think people were just as smart as they are today. I do. I think that. But Hollywood film it has to have progressed. I think if you watch movies now, I think it looks like people, how they actually speak. When I watched Friday the 13th, it is terrible acting. It's not good at the production. Now, I realize like time has progressed and you have the CGI stuff. Did I get that right? CGI? Whatever, look it up. The special effects and all that. I think that time has obviously progressed. Movies are probably better in that aspect. but just the speaking parts, like you could have made it better. It's terrible. The acting was terrible. And just the way they floated around and jumped around, the way they said their lines. And I noticed that it was dumb. It was cringy. That's actually the word. That's the word. It was actually cringy. The movie was very cringy. And my 10-year-old, she said, and we had no idea where she was going with this. She said, did you guys grow up in the 80s? And we're like, well, yeah, yeah, we did. We grew up in the 80s. She's like, were you guys weird like that in the 80s? Like, did you talk like that? And like, she like picked up on it. My 10-year-old picked up on I want to say the production. It's an 80s movie. That is what it is. But the speaking, it's terrible. You just got to look at the movie. I would encourage you to go watch this movie. It's not scary. Like it was made 43 years ago. It actually was probably made like 44 or 45 years ago. But, it came to film in 1980. So that's when it came out. So if you watch it now and you watched it when you were a kid, whatever you thought about it, I'm going somewhere with this too. So if you thought it was scary when you were a kid and you go watch it now, you're going to just stare at the TV and you can't get past the acting. You can't get past the way that the lines are actually coming out of their mouths, the way that they speak. Like just the guys on the show, like my children, they thought the guys in the 80s were the biggest nerds ever because you had to see the TV show. And probably in the 80s, that was probably a good, scary movie. It probably was. But if you watch it now, it's almost comical, the way it's laid out. And that's a weird thing. So I walked in and I said, I told my mom, I was like, hey, we just watched Friday the 13th. And she's like, you guys watch that? Remember, I got a 10-year-old. She's trying to be mom or grandma. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I do not watch that. I'm like, why not? Why not? She's like, I don't watch those kinds of movies. I'm like, what do you mean you don't watch those kinds of movies? She's like, I don't watch any of those. I watched Freddy Krueger a long time ago, and every time I fell asleep, I'd open my eyes real fast. I'm like, well, I'm going to assure the world right here, if you watch the first Friday the 13th right now, 43 years after it came out in the movie theaters, I can promise you are not going to be terrified in any way. You're not even going to get past the way it's laid out. It's terrible language. Yeah, I'm just saying. And today, by the way, I believe we're going to watch Friday the 13th, the second one. Now, do I think it's going to be terrible? Absolutely. I believe it was made 81 or 82. It was one of those two, 81 or 82. Maybe 82. But this one's going to be more of like the classic slasher, I believe, because I think Jason's going to come out in this one. Yeah, so we're going to watch that. I don't think this one will be terrible. I think the kids will like this one. Now, anyway, I will tell you this though. Listen, all right. So here I just made fun of it. So for anybody to act like they were scared about it, let me just make this statement. And so anybody else, because I don't know how long ago this movie was made, but now you can, let me reverse it and put it back on me. I'm going to tell you right now, for the same reason, and I realize she's not attempting to be evil, but for the same reason, this is me. I don't care where you stand. I don't care what your beliefs are with it. I'm just saying for me, for the same reason that I'm not watching The Exorcist. I'm not listening to Long Island Medium, not watching that show. Doesn't work for me. I'm not watching The Exorcist at all. I'm not watching shows about demons, not doing it. So I know, like right now, anybody's like, well, it's just Hollywood. Because I know everybody's different on this thing. Like, it's just acting. It's just Hollywood. It's not real. That's what they're going to say. You know what? But I think some of that stuff is real, and that's why I don't want any part of it. Now you're like, okay, well, you watch Jason? Yeah, I watch Jason because I don't think that you can blow a guy up and shoot a guy 37 times, set him on fire 12 times, and send him to space and send him to hell. I guess there's one of those also. No, I don't think that any of that's real at all. But you start getting to that other stuff, nope, I'm not touching it. I'm not doing that at all. I've always said this. Like, you can fight people, but you can't fight ghosts. Nope. You're not getting me on that, Jackie. You're going down, Jackie. Yeah, I'm not doing it. No way am I doing that. Guaranteed. Well, listen, people, I'm going to get off here. You know, it's like I'm talking to you guys, you know. Leighton's not here. It makes it different. So I guess I'll go ahead and hop off this thing. Put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. Everybody, have a good week and love you.